So my name's Alex. I'm the physio team lead at IRS, and this is Nick. She has a very fancy name, and I can't remember.
It's a bit of a mouthful. I can I can say it for you.
Yeah,
Brand experience specialist.
brand experience specialist. Beautiful. And
Yeah.
we have Clouds over here, I'll let you introduce yourself, Clouds.
Also a difficult one to remember. It's grade 1 physio.
Um, okay, so we're gonna sort of talk through our grad program. Before we do, we'll acknowledge the traditional owners of the land. So we acknowledge the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation, um, which is where our office in Carnegie is located. I'm actually dialing in from Tasmania, so we'll acknowledge the Malukadi people of the Southeast Nation. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and we acknowledge and uphold their continuing connection to the land and waterways. All right. So, as I said, my name's Alex. I have been at IRS for about 7 and a bit years. I joined in 2016 after I returned home from a very fun couple of years working as a physio in the UK. Um, and I started IRS as a baby, grade 1, very green to the neuro space. Um, and I'll just admit one more. Yeah, so I had worked in community neuro in the UK, and I joined the Melbourne IRS team. And from there, I sort of have been on an amazing, wild and wonderful sort of career trajectory. And I've been in the team lead role for the past 4 years or so. Um, and I'll introduce Clouds.
Hello. So I'm Clouds or Claudia, and I'm a grade 1 physio at IRS, and I went through the new grad program myself last year. So a little bit about me, I found my passion for neuro rehab through my multiple placements I did at a outpatient rehab facility throughout my degree. So when I was looking for jobs at the end of 2021 now, I decided to venture out into the world of community as I wasn't really sure if the hospitals and kind of what they had to offer was what I really wanted. And that's how I found IRS. And when Alex and I were talking about this presentation, we was talking about how I joined IRS, which is a story that has come up quite a few times for such a short period of time, which was that I did a few interviews in a really short period of time. One was for a hospital, one was for IRS, and I got job offers for both of them. And IRS was really respectful that it was a big choice for me. They were really lovely about it. And the hospital was a fair bit less so, was very demanding of me, asking me to make really fast decisions. And for me, it was quite tricky because the hospital I got the job at was where I'd done all my placements. It was really familiar. And IRS at that point sounded amazing, but I hadn't had any experience there. So it felt a little bit like taking a leap of faith. But in the end, I'm someone who really values work-life balance and workplace respect. And the choice was really easy because I had the hospital sort of giving me no support, no understanding around the fact that it was quite a difficult decision. Meanwhile, I've got Alex saying to me, take what, we're here, we'd love to have you, but I'm sure either way you'll be happy with the decision. I thought, well, if you're like, that's just exactly the level of support I needed. They scrambled to get some things organized for me that I needed to make the decision. And then here I am over 18 months later, and I couldn't be happier with where I ended up. So that's a little bit about me. And now we're going to get on to presentation. So we're going to start by just discussing a little bit about IRS, who we are, our values and our approach, how we work, and then get a bit more into the nitty gritty of the new grad program, what a typical day looks like as a community neurophysio, the supports available for new grads, and the benefits of working at IRS. And this will be followed by the opportunity for questions and some more info about how to keep connected and next steps if you want to learn a little bit more. Yes. So if you have any questions, just feel free to pop them in the chat as we go, and Nick will be sort of monitoring that, and we'll happily shout things out as we go. But if you could, and we'll also be recording the session for anyone who misses it.
Nice. Okay. So who are we? What are we about? Why do we love it so much? So at IRS, we specialize in community neurological rehab for adults. That is our bread and butter. And we work with adults with a neurological diagnosis, either a newly acquired one or a neurological disability. And in my humble opinion, this is the coolest, edgiest, most interesting space to work in. I kind of floated around a number of different jobs prior to landing IRS. And I truly think that it is the best expression of what we as physiotherapists can do in terms of our skills. So there's this big, I don't know, I always felt like when I was in the hospital or other jobs that I was being underutilized, or my intellect and knowledge was being underutilized. But in this space, I feel like I am stretched and challenged every single day in a good way. So in terms of the clients we see, I mentioned we get referrals for acute neurological diagnoses, and it can range from acute traumatic brain injuries or traumatic spinal cord injuries or strokes. So for these clients, they come to us following discharge from hospital. So usually they have undergone a period of inpatient rehab, and they're in this really critical juncture of their lives where they are transitioning home and going through a big adjustment period. So it's a very emotional, and it's just a time of immense change and adjustment. And we sort of walk alongside them through that journey. Just thinking of examples of my caseload at the moment. So I have a young client in Tassie at the moment who is a young man who sustained a C4 traumatic spinal cord injury whilst mountain bike riding. He spent over a year in rehab in Sydney, I think in the Royal North Shore. And he's recently returned home to Tas. So his goals are still quite rehabby in the sense that he hasn't quite settled on his baseline. So his function is evolving, and he's an excellent responder to repeated practice and to exercise. So that's a cool and exciting time for him, because we keep pushing and trying new things until we can settle on what that functional baseline is. So the goals we're working on with him are still quite functional, like he wants to be able to roll over independently in bed without having to wake up his partner. That's quite important to him. We're practicing transfers in and out of his own car, which he hasn't had access to for a long time. And we're doing some upper limb nerve transfer rehab to see what kind of functional returns he gets for his hands. So that's one sort of client. Another big part of our caseload is our neurological disability clients. So these are funded through the NDIS, and these are people who've been living with a disability for a long time, and it could be people who've had a disability for as long as they've been alive, so congenital diagnosis such as cerebral palsy. And this is a completely different space, and it's a space that I love because I think the goals can be super interesting and expansive. They're sort of like real life stuff. Like I want to be able to go on a date, or I want to learn to do a dance for my wedding, or I want to swim the pier to pub. That was a goal I had with a client a few years ago. An example of that I've got on my caseload at the moment. I've got last 5 years I've been working with a chappie who has an incomplete spinal cord injury and ABI in 2000 actually. I'll just let someone else in. And my involvement with them over the last few years has been sort of ad hoc, depending on what he needed, and it was sort of in more of a maintenance phase so he could continue his participation in his job and exercise. And recently he welcomed the birth of his first child, and it's completely changed the nature of, well, you know, his life, and also he's super motivated to work on other things that perhaps he didn't have that, you know, incentive to. So one thing we're working on at the moment is him be able to hold his baby and transfer on and off the floor so he can play with his daughter and change her nappy. And another thing he's having trouble with is holding her and feeling confident and safe to walk around his house. So that's a goal. Those are goals which have sort of come up as he moves through his life and our involvement comes in and out. Another example of the types of clients we see are the sort of progressive neurological diagnoses. So, you know, Parkinson's or dementia, motor neuron disease. And these goals are different. They can be more about preserving function or ticking off bucket list items or living with dignity and quality of life. So I've got a client on my caseload at the moment, a young woman with early onset dementia. She has very, very high care needs. So she's nonverbal, she has no selective movement, and she is quite vulnerable because she is not able to move or advocate for herself. Unfortunately, in Tassie, there's a big percentage of young people with disabilities in nursing homes. So she's had a really tough time for the past 3 years during COVID with barely any access to allied health or to meaningful activities. In fact, there were none. So my role in that space has been trying to bring in all of the supports so we can work on, you know, dignity and quality of life, as well as managing some of the high clinical risks that are around in her life at the moment. So yeah, it's a very different space to potentially the exposure you might have had in the hospital setting. Our goals are incredibly dynamic and they truly are person-centered. And, you know, people with disabilities don't have pathology, or a disability isn't a pathology. It's they simply just want to be able to access their humanness like you or I, and it's a huge privilege to be a part of that. And that's why I love this job and this space. I'm rambling a bit now, but I guess I've spoken about person-centered. I'll talk a little bit about our team. So we're super lucky at IRS. We've got 30 something OTs and 10 something speeches. I'm not quite sure at the moment, but teamwork is really critical for us for the success that we have and the outcomes we have with our clients. And it's just super nice to be able to have esteemed, capable, really clever, switched on colleagues who you can bounce ideas off, problem solve with, debrief after tricky sessions, and it's really important for our well-being as well. And also IRS, the coolest thing about IRS is we celebrated our 24th birthday a fortnight ago. So Kate Phillips is our practice principal. She's an absolute, for those of you who don't know her, she's legendary in this space. So IRS was the first of its kind, you know, back in the 90s, where there were no private neuro community services. It was either hospital or that's it. So she's really pioneered and has been advocating in the disability and neurospace for many, many decades. She's a highly tenured and respected woman, and I'd encourage you to look her up. And she's one of my all-time role models. So we're very lucky to have her at the helm of IRS. Yeah, let's go to the next slide, Clouds. So a bit about values, which we are obsessed with, quite frankly, because it really it forms the heart and the center of everything and every decision that we make here. And it sounds cliche, but it truly is true. And I can speak from experience of being involved in, leadership decisions coming from the top. The values really are the core of everything. And it informs the way we work with our clients and the self that I bring to my job every day. So our IRS values are integrity. So we often find ourselves in, delicate situations. It's a challenging space to work in, and every day we have a choice to act with integrity or doing the right thing and not just the easy thing, which I'm finding increasingly in this day and age. I'm like, why doesn't anyone have any integrity anymore? Like, I can't, I keep getting ghosted by tradies and stuff. Anyway, I won't go into that. Inclusivity is another really important value for us. So we are very proudly inclusive here, and we proudly welcome and celebrate our LGBTQIA plus folks, our gender diverse folks, our Indigenous peoples, and the land that we practice on. We are proud advocates and allies of people with disability, people of neurodiverse backgrounds, faith and spiritual backgrounds, people of all cultures and ethnicities, and people across the entire lifespan. That is very, very important to us. And at the heart of inclusivity is respect. So we deeply respect each other and our colleagues, and we respect our clients and their choice and control, and we respect them as being the agents of their own destiny. And there's a beautiful shift in power dynamic that happens in the community space where we are truly there to work with the client and for the client, and we don't insert ourselves and our goals and our ideas onto them. We truly listen to them and support them with what they believe they need and want. Expertise is another one of our values. We have like an enormous and quite intimidating collective expertise, and having that hive mind of 40-something very clever and capable clinicians is a massive asset. And every day I learn from my colleagues. Inspiration, another value, our client stories. The client stories that we hear from our colleagues, which we share on a Monday morning during our huddle, like honestly, they make me weep. Like I feel so proud of my colleagues and what they do to support their clients every day. And leading change, we are big believers in having growth mindset, and we are also big reflectors. So I guess as early career clinicians, a piece of advice I would have for you at this stage is to really challenge, or just like do a bit of self-inquiry, like what is important to you over the next couple of years as you enter into your career, and ask those questions of places that you're applying for. Do your values align? What do they stand for? And are they deeply embedded in those practices? Any questions so far? Feel free to whack them in. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about our clinical approach. So I've touched on a few of these points in the previous slides, but I guess these are the things that we aspire to every day. And this is also what our clients can expect from us. So as you know, Kate Phillips founded IRS 24 years ago. Natalie Pribble, who is our business manager, also joined IRS 18 years ago as a grade 2 OT. And many of Kate and Nat's sort of original team are still working at IRS. So their retention rate is insanely high, especially in this, crazy economic time. And we're super proud of that. And because of that, because we've got a lot of clinicians working here that have been in this space for decades, literally, we've subsequently got people who are really, really good at their job. You just, that level of experience is a huge asset for us. And a lot of people have moved into specialty areas. So some examples within the physio team specifically, we've got Emma Downey, who is our clinical lead of the physio team. She's responsible for the development of the team clinically and including the new grad program. So she has developed that. As well as working at IRS, she also works at the Alfred in the MS clinic. So she has loads of experience in that space. She's had, she's done postgrad studies, and she's also got advanced vestibular certification. This is just an example of, the collective or the expertise within the physio team alone. Libby is another senior physio with us. She's been, I'm pretty sure, 18 years again. She has, like really, really hardcore, fantastic handling skills. She has magic hands. She's also a specialist in behaviours of concern, and has developed lots of courses and hands-on shoots for us over the years. I've also got a bit of a special interest in persistent pain. I particularly love the intersection of neuro and pain. I feel like it's a space that, the pain courses don't necessarily teach you about. So I did my master's at University of Sydney a few years ago, so I'm really into that space. We've also got Izzy, who's done her advanced bow bath training and is on a pathway to becoming a bow bath instructor. So yeah, that's just sort of an example of the breadth of clinical expertise that we have just within the physio team. And because of that, we have really high quality of care. Next slide.
So a little bit on how we work. Now, if I didn't sell it to you with my story at the beginning, then I'll say it again now. Support really is at the heart of everything at IRS. So we have so much formal support. So there's supervision, there's mentoring, there's peer support sessions, buddy catch-ups, and we'll touch on what all those mean a bit later on. But there's also really good informal support that everyone on the team provides to each other day to day, whether that's calling someone while you're in the car or having a chat to someone in the office. There's always someone around. And this support extends into having a really good flexible working arrangement available to you at IRS. So that's something that really stood out to me when I applied. And it does make a big difference, particularly just to your well-being and your work satisfaction, being able to work flexibly and make time to have a life outside of work. So whether that be like you need to go to a medical appointment or do something a bit more fun and go for a long lunch or get your hair cut, or you just want to start a bit earlier or finish a bit later, or whatever it is that works with you as a person. Like I'm such a morning person. I love starting at 8. And the beautiful thing is it means I finish at 4. And particularly like as the weather starts to get a bit nicer, it means that I've got quite a bit of the afternoon ahead of me when I finish, which is very nice to look forward to. The flexibility is also quite good as it extends to your caseload a bit too, and just having really good control over who you see, when you see them, and also being able to sort of choose areas that interest you. So for me, I really like working kind of more with high-level physical goals, and that's something that our referrals team's aware of, and I've gotten a few calls over the last 18 months about things that people just saw and thought would be of interest to me. And off the top of my head, I think there was trialing a golf simulator, doing triathlons, beach volleyball, and swimming, because I love getting in the pool.
You get all the swimming referrals, don't you?
I do get all the swimming referrals, yeah. And then you also get a choice over kind of the load in your caseload, and your supervisors help you work through that, particularly early on. The other thing is just at the bottom there, it says that continuous learning and development, the commitment that IRS has to that. I mean, really beneficial. There's just so much that goes on within IRS, and also you get a clinical budget, PD budget, that you can use each year. And again, we'll talk about that a bit later on, but that has been something that I've really enjoyed sort of having over the last 2 years to do some pretty interesting bits and bobs.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit about our grad program. So we are super proud of this program, and also we're super jealous of it. Like if I would have killed to have had this sort of supportive, structured program when I started my career. We've been, carefully finessing it for the last 6 years. We've still got a lot of our original grads who have, climbed the ranks and are now becoming senior clinicians, which is really exciting and beautiful to see. And it's also changes each year based on feedback. And the number one bit of feedback we get from our new grads every year is how supported they have felt throughout this, really critical time as they launch into their physio career. So yeah, from day one, you'll enter into a highly structured program that it's sort of projected over a 2-year period. For the first 3 months, though, it is quite scheduled down to the day. So your weeks will be booked for you with a series of induction, tutes, and tasks, self-directed and group learning. You'll also start in a big group. So we'll be taking OT, physio, and speech new grads. So you'll have a bunch of pals that you can share the experience with. So yeah, the hope is that the Trello board provides a lot of structure. You'll have daily and weekly tasks, and within that, within the Trello board, you just start ticking it off, and the timing of each induction task should align with things that you are exposed to in terms of your clinical work. Our supervision program is also very generous compared to other places I've worked. So from day one, you'll be allocated a supervisor. They're your number one support. You meet with them twice a week initially, and that sort of slowly weans down as you start to feel more confident. And outside of those formal supervision sessions, you will have unlimited access to informal check-ins and catch-ups. We're very online and available, and we all as a team take collective responsibility of each other's learning. So if your supervisor's not around, you'll just turn to whoever's closest, and they will be there for you. Your first few weeks will be jammed packed with shadowing, days on the road, and joint working with your physio colleague. So you'll get out, jump in the car, head out with an OT, meet some clients that you share together. You'll have a half day on the road with a senior clinician. So lots of moments or opportunities for observation of how, a basic neuro assessment is conducted, or, these sort of first times. There's a big list of first things that you'll be doing, and you'll never be alone. You'll always have someone there either with you or prepping you and supporting you. In addition to supervision, we have a mentoring program. So that includes clinical mentoring and professional mentoring. And that is sort of a deeper dive or a more in-depth look into, a particular client concern. That mentor will come along to a session with you. Or if you have professional goals that you want to work on, such as practicing some motivational interviewing techniques, or having a session about how you can best manage your health and well-being, given your brain is learning so many things and you're very excited, but you're not sleeping and you're thinking about work outside of work. Your caseload you'll be introduced to your caseload slowly. So you will have a list of clients that are yours. And with every new client, you'll have a senior clinician come along to meet them or hand over for the first time. And your client visits will slowly build each week. So about the 6-month mark, you'll be comfortably seeing 3 clients a day. We don't usually see more than that. We find that with travel and the additional coordination and non-face-to-face work we do for our clients, that 3 is a nice comfy number. We also have a beautiful business support team who I can't speak highly enough of. Nick is part of that team, and their role is basically to enable us to do our job as to the best of our ability. So they work really hard to make our days smoother, safer, and funner. So yeah, over to you, Clouds.
Sorry, I don't know what's happening there. Hang on. So yeah, to carry on from what Alex was saying about the new grad program, I went through it last year and it was fantastic. So there's a good career journey plan at IRS. You work with your supervisor to reflect on your clinical knowledge and areas of practice you're interested in. And this isn't something that you have to know straight away. This is something you sort of develop over time and you continue. It's a live document. And you outline this within your personal career journey doc, and that document kind of coordinates your clinical and your professional goals, and that can also help guide how you spend your PD budget too, which can be quite helpful. So as I touched on before, there's a wide range of professional development activities that are available. So internally, there's in-services, we have equipment demonstrations with external providers. So recently we went to Push Mobility and had a look at some of the wheelchairs and power assists that they had available. We have case study lunches where someone talks through a more complex clinical situation. I've done 2 of them and they've been very, very helpful, just with kind of making plans moving forward with those clients that you get a little bit stuck with. We also have like a wider team MDT PD feedback lunch. It's a mouthful. For when clinicians attend something external and they come back and they reflect on what they learned to the team. There's also learning packages available. There's hypertonicity, there's pain package. They're also about to run one on posture and seating. And then recently we also had a 2-day PD on motivational interviewing, which I really enjoyed, just sort of being supported not just with your clinical PD, but your professional PD. And I feel like that's a bit different to what you get anywhere else. Like I touched on before, you have a generous PD budget after you've done the initial induction program. And so your supervisor can help kind of guide what external PD is available. And people are always sending emails to the whole team with things that they've been alerted to that sound interesting and relevant to our caseload. So that's always helpful. Then there's also access to a number of informal peer support programs. So there's the new grad peer support group, which I have been lucky enough to both participate in and run over the last 2 years. So all the new grads, so everyone you start with meets on a bi-monthly basis at a local cafe, and you meet with someone who is a year out from being a new grad, and you just sort of chat through settling into the workplace, managing caseload, work-life balance, ask that person that's been there for more than 12 months for tips on how to manage those things as well. And it's just a really nice informal opportunity to get together and just discuss all those burning questions that you don't really know where to direct them to. There's also the grade 1 peer support program, which is still informal but has a bit more structure to it in that we talk about certain topics. So I think this year we've done managing challenging conversations, tax, report writing skills, and a few other things. And that also meets bi-monthly. And finally, we have the buddy program, which is a very well-loved program where new grads get paired up with someone who is not a new grad but works at IRS. And they can be from any of the teams. I think they don't tend to usually be from your own team, which is nice just to sort of extend your team friendships within the team, particularly when you first start. And that's just really informal catch up, go for a walk, grab a coffee, and just have a chat about how you're going with your well-being, chat through your caseload informally, just about what you've sort of seen and experiencing, and just checking in with each other about how your week's going. Yeah, so that's a bit of fun too. So in light of all this, I thought I'd take you through a bit of a day in the life of me, which is pretty indicative of a community neuro rehab physio, I think, although every day is very, very different. So there's really no day in the life. This is kind of more a rough outline of what it could look like. Like Alex has sort of touched on already, we do have some pretty awesome goals that are really meaningful to our clients and get them back into doing their everyday activities. And it was hearing about some of these more wild goals that some of the other physios were working on when I was interviewing. That was part of what caught my attention.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was lucky enough. I think you gave me some numbers for some of the physios that were working there. And I just remember asking someone what they were working on at the moment. And they were like, oh, one of my clients wants to return to riding a horse. Then I have another client that's rollerblading. Then I have another client who wants to go to do a bike ride. And I was like, well, you wouldn't really get that in a hospital. That's a bit different and a bit more, puts you thinking a bit harder. And then there's also the meaningful ones, like what Alex was talking about. When I was reflecting back, the first thing that popped into my head was a client of mine with Parkinson's, and he was diagnosed more than 15 years ago. And his goal earlier this year was to complete a walk in the park, which is a fundraiser for Parkinson's, and he's a strong advocate for fundraising. And he last did it in 2019, had a bit of a deterioration during COVID just from that loss of services, and then was pretty nervous he wasn't going to be able to get through the walk, because when he did it in 2019, he was already finding it quite difficult. So we worked pretty closely together for the months leading up to it, doing lots of walks. We even did the course itself so that he felt a bit more confident on the day. And he was pretty stoked with himself when he did the full 2-kilometer walk with only 2 breaks. And just like Alex was saying, you have those moments where you just see the excitement on someone's face and it just makes your day. Just him knowing that he would then be able to do it on the day and had the confidence to go out and do it. And yeah, he loved every minute of it from what I had reported back to me. So that was pretty special. The other thing about a day in the life is, like Alex has sort of pointed out as well, MDT is very important. We spend a lot of time working closely, not just with the OTs and speechies at IRS, but also with external team members. And we often do joint sessions, which is a bit of fun. And probably one of my favorite things about the job is when you get to put your head together with someone else and get in there and try and work on something. So the one for me that I think is the most different is that I work quite closely with a neuropsychologist for one client, which I feel like doesn't happen very often, in that we actually do face-to-face sessions together, because this client's biggest limiting factor to making physical improvements is his anxiety and his anxiety around falling. So having us come in together worked really well, because rather than sort of floundering and trying to work on that kind of more mental side of things, I was able to tackle the physical, because he had deteriorated. So there was that element there as well. And she was able to come in, give me the tools to help support him and his anxiety, and also work with him at the same time as I was working with him. And it worked really well. We went over a period of 4 months. He was initially only able to walk maybe like 5 or 6 steps, and he was fatiguing really quickly and getting really anxious. And by the time 4 months was down the track, he's walking about 20 meters. So it was just really interesting to see how that combined force could make such an impact, which was quite exciting. What else about day in the life? So aside from the face-to-face, we have a lot of, not a lot, but we do a fair amount of non-face-to-face work, which is things like report writing. We do write exercise programs, hydro programs, gym programs, if you're me, agility programs, running programs, triathlon programs, the list goes on. Participate in meetings, liaise with other members of the team, and there's also some admin work too. And so most of my days often start with doing a little bit of that admin work, which is just kind of looking over my calendar, starting at home or at the office, and planning out my days and my sessions. And that is, again, with that flexible working, we have full ownership of our calendars, and we can schedule our days how we want them to look. So I quite like to split up my day. I like to do a bit of admin, then do a bit of on the road, then do a bit more not on the road, then do a bit more on the road, just to sort of split it up and keep things changing. We also wouldn't be a day in the life without mentioning the office in Carnegie, which you can see in that middle top photo, which is just a hub of activity. Our best team is always there to greet you with a smiling face when you walk in the door, and then there's always other clinicians around. So we all love catching up there regularly, particularly Wednesdays when we have long lunches, which we normally use to celebrate either something kind of more clinical focused. So we did World Physio Day 2 or 3 weeks ago now. Is that right? And then we also celebrate things like weddings, birthdays, big milestone birthdays.
We did Are You OK Day today with our legendary IRS Family Feud competition that's been running for nearly 5 years.
Yeah, Nick got knocked out of first place just.
Yeah, just 4 points.
I feel like
And
we also need a picture of Roberto, our coffee machine, in here.
yes, he's a
True.
famous. We can replace one of those photos. But I reckon my favorite thing about going into the office is when people bring their dogs in. That is a good day.
Always a
Yeah,
good day.
we have to have
Always.
a booking policy for dogs now, because at one point there were just too many puppies.
Mayhem.
Too many puppies, exactly. Yeah, so to keep going on that social side, the work, if you haven't figured it out, our workplace culture is pretty great. We all love being in the office. We love being around each other so much that we keep going outside of the office. So, like I said, we've got the Wednesday lunches there. I think we've got a Mother's Day lunch, a birthday, and a baby shower. And then we also do like team get-togethers. So each team has social reps that organise things like team dinners. The physio team recently went bowling and then had dinner. We also have a mixed netball team, which is pictured there. People go to park run. Recently, someone organised to go to Hotham for a long weekend. And then we've also got the fundraising events. So we've got, like, what have we done? September happening at the moment. The 50K in May. There was Jeans for Jeans, and that just sort of gets everyone up and about, and everyone's really supportive of each other. And I know with September there was some walks organised, so people getting out and doing that as a group. So yeah, it's a bit of fun. We've got a good social side. And then, yeah, just I guess a bit more endorsement from the team. We have a fantastic chat group called What Are You Grateful For? It's got everyone in it. And as you can see pictured here, it's regularly used and everyone's pretty grateful, which is fantastic. So
as you can see, everyone's pretty grateful.
I think the one that caught my eye was Izzy with the horse and the puppy. And then since then, she's also had a session where she was with cows.
Yeah.
She was pretty grateful to have such an interesting, diverse work situation. And then we've also got Megan working out of the back of her car at the beach, just showing, how good that flexibility is, that you can work out of the back of your car at the beach in the middle of a work day if that's how you want to structure your day, which is pretty cool.
Have a cheeky swim.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's kind of, we're heading towards the end of it. But I think personally for me, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do as a new grad, the clinical side of IRS is fantastic, but there's also that added bonus of this culture. And I'm really glad that I got to be part of a team for that first year that provided me with amazing support, career growth opportunities, and a really good work-life balance perspective that I feel like I might not have gotten elsewhere. So yeah, I guess I hope Alex and I have been able to shed a little bit of light on who we are and what we do. And now, if anyone has any questions, feel free.
Don't be shy. No question is too silly.
Hello everyone. Just wondering like how's like working with NDIS, like how's like the paperwork and like the clients, I guess.
That's a good question. So the NDIS, I think, is a really exciting space for physios at the moment because, like I mentioned before, the goals you get to work on are very diverse and very life participation focused. There is there is an expectation that you remain accountable to your to the goals that you're setting. So there's an expectation that you would write a report which outlines, how the client's funding has been utilized and what you have achieved with that funding. Those reports are, the report writing is a skill. The first time you do it, it'll take forever, and then by the 50th time you do it, you'll be smashing through them. So NDIS reports are required every 12 months or so as their plan comes to an end. where you also request funding for the additional plan. But unfortunately, we live in, a bureaucratic society that demands us write things down a lot. So we have to do a bit of paperwork, but it's a necessary part of that process to get what the client needs and wants. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, kind of. Thank you though.
I love NDIS. I'm a big fan. I think it's fantastic and it's a privilege to work in that space. Any other questions?
Obviously you see like some patients, you see them over and over for, you said you've just seen one for 5 years.
Yeah.
How often do you see like new clients?
Yeah, so it depends if they're like in a rehab phase. We do get some, like I said, those newly acquired injuries like stroke or TBI. There might be a very intensive period of physio support, so it might be bi-weekly. We don't often provide more than twice a week, because usually by the point, or they have undergone rehab in the hospital. So bi-weekly sessions, which then start to taper off depending on how they're tracking. Yeah.
Nice, thank you.
No worries.
I've got a question with sorry, work safe patients. I guess how common is that in like a neuro-based environment? Because I feel like a lot of work safe people are more physical injuries rather than like a neuro type of injury. And how common is it to actually return them to work?
Yeah. Hi, Rachel, by the way. We spoke on the phone
Hello.
this afternoon. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, good. That was a good question. So we do have some WorkSafe clients, but we only take on clients who have sustained a neurological injury due to a workplace accident. So I've got a couple of, sorry.
I was going to say I have a few if you wanted examples.
Yeah, so spinal cord injury is a big one, like people falling from ladders, or I've got a few, spinal work safe clients. We don't return to work is it sometimes might not be possible for clients who have sustained quite a severe workplace injury, and that's usually the space that we work in, severe TBI or severe impairment where return to work isn't an achievable goal, but we often are trying to work to get them into the workforce in some capacity.
I have a client at the moment who's quite high level, who's TAC, and we've just got them back to working part-time in the same job 3 days a week. And there's some modified duties, but that's more due to a musculoskeletal injury that was sustained in the accident rather than being anything to do with the brain injury that was also sustained. So there is a little bit of it, yeah.
Yeah, but return to work is a really important, or not even returning to work, accessing the workforce is a huge part of the NDIS as well. So there's a big push to get people with disabilities into the workforce because there's so much value and expertise there that when, due to social barriers, we're not doing very well at that as a society in including people with disabilities into the workforce. So that's a fun space to work in.
Just out of curiosity, like following up with that, does NDIS then run parallel with like the TAC WorkSafe during that?
Yeah.
Or you kind of have to wait for TAC to run out of time and then NDIS kicks in?
That's a good question also. So TAC, again, with compensable health, WorkSafe and TAC, we only see the clients who have severe neurological injury. And for those people, TAC will remain a part of their life forever. So TAC often doesn't like phase out. They can operate concurrently, but it is a sort of an interesting space where there is a division of what TAC will cover and what NDIS will cover, where they're trying not to duplicate, but both can exist the same time. Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries. Any other questions? We're very happy to answer any question or phone call, email, jump on a Zoom call over the next few weeks as you're thinking about whether you'd like to apply. Oh, sorry, Clouds, I'm stealing your bit.
So we are very available on social media, as
Very
you can
available,
see here.
yeah.
So if you want to learn a bit more about what we do and what we get up to behind the scenes and what Nick's up to, filming us all the time, like paparazzi. We have Facebook, Instagram, the website, YouTube channel, and a podcast called Bouncing Back. So there's plenty available for you to have a look at, just to get a bit more info on sort of what we're up to. The Instagram's often got some reels going on about the more social aspects, as well as some stories by some of our clients of their rehab journeys. And that's what the podcast is all about too, is interviewing our clients and them telling us a little bit more about their stories, which is a good listen.
So yeah, if you would like to apply or continue to ask questions about the program, we're actively recruiting now. So jump onto our website, and there are portals there. You can also email our careers website listed on this slide. If you're into it, you can, I often ask Clouds if she can support a half day on the road with a prospective applicant. That's something we can offer. Also, if you'd like to chat with some of the physios who are currently in our grad program, we have 5 at the moment, I believe.
Yeah,
I think 5, yeah. So they're kind of in their 6 to 9 month mark, and they're super happy to share their experience. So yeah, I guess the questions I would implore you to ask yourself is, this job, you must have a passion for the client population that we work with, which is adult neuro rehab and disability. In the community exclusively, out in the community, in the real world, we don't do any clinic-based work. If you are motivated and eager to learn and you're up for a challenge, and if your values align with our values, that's really important to us, that you feel like those resonate with you. Yeah, we'd really love to hear from you, and we welcome your application. Yeah. What's that say? So yeah, the recruitment process is pretty straightforward. You apply. I usually will give you a call within a few days. We have a bit of a chat about your those things we spoke about, your values, what interests you. Also an opportunity to answer any questions. We'll book in an interview pretty quickly. It will be with myself and another physio. We carry out reference checks, and then if you are successful in the position, we work through a start date together. We allocate you a buddy and we start preparing your induction. So yeah, it's a busy period for us over Christmas. We're very busy bees preparing for our grad program to start. The tentative start date for our new grads this year will be, or next year will be, the 29th of Jan. That's sort of what we're working towards. Yeah, that's it really. And we're right on time. So